Hi everyone, I'm Caroline Perkins and I am the Economic Research Manager at Buckinghamshire Local Enterprise Partnership. So I'm going to speak for the next 10 minutes on two things. Firstly, the impact of COVID-19 on the local and national labour market. And secondly, about where the job opportunities are both now and in the future locally. So firstly, looking at the impact of COVID. Next slide, please. So clearly COVID-19 has caused many challenges within the job market. And on the left-hand side here, I list some of those challenges. The availability of jobs is the key challenge. And we do anticipate that there will be more competition for jobs over the next few years. There's fewer vacancies and more people look for work. And some sectors, as you've probably seen in the news, have been affected more significantly than others. So sectors in which jobs are likely to be scarce for some time include aviation, travel, events, marketing, and the arts. And it's also likely to be harder to get both full and part-time work in the retail and hospitality sectors. In the short term, we did see a drop in the number of apprenticeship opportunities and placement and internship opportunities, but that is now picking up. So I think that's something where we have seen a change in the last few months. And it has been harder to get work experience, particularly in offices, and much recruitment is now undertaken via video. So that's the depressing bit out of the way, I think. So there are many reasons to be cheerful. And firstly, many employers are still recruiting. And in Buckinghamshire in October, the number of job vacancies were back up to pre-pandemic levels for the first time in 2020. That's really good news. Some sectors are predicted to bounce back quickly, and they include many key graduate employment sectors such as health, social care, IT, and finance. The government is very aware that young people's opportunities have been impacted by COVID-19 and are therefore setting up a number of initiatives to help young people, including the Kickstart scheme. And there are ongoing opportunities for further study, gaining skills through volunteering, and there are opportunities to start your own business. It's quite a good economic environment in which to start a business at the moment. In the long term, probably a long-term change as a result of the pandemic is that flexible working is likely to become more common in the future, which is potentially a good thing. Next slide, please. So still on COVID, this chart just helps demonstrate the impact that COVID has had on the labour market. So the bars in this chart are the number of people in Buckinghamshire claiming unemployment-related benefits. And we did see a big jump in April and May time and a levelling off since then. Next slide, please. This chart shows how different sectors have been affected differently. So it shows the number of job opportunities, online job adverts by occupation. And it compares the time period July to September of this year with July to September last year. And on the left-hand side, we have jobs that there is greater demand in 2020 than there was in the previous year. And many of those jobs are within the health and care sector, but also within professional services sectors, accountancy, legal roles, for example. Some jobs where the jobs where we've seen the biggest decreases in number of job postings are predominantly within the hospitality sector, but also within HR training sector and sales and customer service. Next slide, please. And finally, which skills do we think are potentially increasing in importance as a result of COVID-19? Some of these are listed here. So things like resilience, adaptability and agility, creative thinking, collaboration and teamwork, digital literacy, and data analytics and data insight are all things that experts think are becoming increasingly important in today's workplaces. So I'm going to move on now away from COVID to look at opportunities within the Buckinghamshire economy. And to start off, just some key stats about what makes Buckinghamshire's economy different and how it differs to other local economies in England. So I think there's a few stats here, but two of the key ones are that Buckinghamshire is a small business economy. So over a third of jobs in Buckinghamshire are with small employers, so employers employing less than 20 people. And this is a much higher proportion than nationally. The other key stat, I think, is that 78% of jobs in Buckinghamshire are in the private sector. And again, that is the highest percentage in the country. So fewer jobs in the public sector, although there clearly are still jobs in the public sector. There's some things to be aware of. Next slide, please. I think this is my favourite slide. So this just shows the wealth of opportunities that we have here on our doorstep. These are some of the largest local employers within Buckinghamshire. And as you can see, there's a wide range of different sectors. Companies here that you may have heard of, some you may not have done. If you have access to these slides post this session, it might be a good idea to look up some of these companies to see what they do. But key groupings includes, we've got some key life sciences companies, some really interesting digital technology companies, advanced manufacturing, we have Pinewood Studios who are speaking later. Also key education institutes, the NHS and Buckinghamshire Council are also key employers. Next slide. And these are companies that you may not have heard of, but they're smaller firms operating within Buckinghamshire who are going places. They are innovating, growing quickly, taking on employees, and are ones to watch for the future, and ones that potentially may offer sort of work experience opportunities in the future. So which are the largest employment sectors in Buckinghamshire? This really reflects the national picture to some extent. So the top 5 sectors in terms of number of people they employ are wholesale and retail, health and social work, education, professional, scientific and technical, and manufacturing. Next slide, please. This slide just there's just some pictures here of some of Buckinghamshire's sector specialisms. So there's some things that companies in Buckinghamshire are global leaders within, and they include space propulsion, there's outside broadcasting, high-end TV and film, spinal injuries, precision engineering, manufacture of measuring instruments, digital technology, pharmaceuticals, and computing wholesale. I'm going to talk briefly now about where the future job opportunities are. We believe that there are at least 1,000 jobs expected to be created in 5 sectors in Buckinghamshire over the next 10 years. So this is 1,000 job opportunities per sector. And those 5 sectors are construction, largely as a result of the HS2 work going on across the county, health and social care, and this is in part linked to an ageing population, both locally and nationally. Creative, particularly TV and film, and this is linked to a possible expansion at Pinewood. The space sector, and also high performance engineering, advanced manufacturing. I'm going to talk about 3 of those sectors in a little bit more detail now. So firstly, the Westcott Space Cluster. Space is one of the UK's fastest growing sectors, and the Westcott Space Cluster is located near Aylesbury. It's home to a small but growing number of space-related companies. There are big developments planned at Westcott. So whilst there's not many companies and not many jobs there now, when as a proportion of all jobs in Buckinghamshire, long term, we're expecting that developments will lead to over 2,000 highly skilled jobs in manufacturing and over 1,000 on-site technical apprenticeships. Studying STEM subjects at school is often the best starting point for a career in the space sector. film and TV. In recent years, the creative sector has been growing 5 times faster than the national economy as a whole, and there are twice as many creative industry jobs within Buckinghamshire than the national average. This is in large part due to Pinewood Studios, which is home to the British film industry. And as I said earlier, there are ambitions to grow the Pinewood studio area. Buckinghamshire is also home to the National Film and Television School in Beaconsfield, which is one of the top film schools in the world. On the right-hand side, sorry, there's just a list here of some of the jobs within Buckinghamshire's film and TV sector. There's just a huge variety of jobs available in this sector. Thanks. High performance engineering, just a little bit about this sector. From electric cars, 3D printing and sports engineering companies based at Silverstone Technology Park to the world famous aircraft ejection seat manufacturer Martin Baker in the south of the county, Buckinghamshire has long been home to groundbreaking high-tech engineering companies. We believe that new property developments at Silverstone Park in particular are attracting new high-tech businesses to Buckinghamshire and creating new jobs. So that's long term, that's where we think the job growth is going to be. But what about now? What about if you were looking to enter the job market within the next 12 months, 2 years, what's available? So this slide just summarises some of the apprenticeship opportunities available in Buckinghamshire. And we know that over 1,000 Buckinghamshire employers offer apprenticeships. And these are apprenticeships that were being advertised over the summer, so in the COVID time, and this is just to demonstrate the variety of apprenticeship opportunities available in terms of the jobs, subject areas, and also the levels at which they're available and location. Next slide, please. And this slide shows what roles local employers are currently seeking graduates for. And again, a wide variety. But just to give you an idea that there is recruitment going on, and these are the types of jobs that employers are currently seeking people in sort of entry-level roles. Got one more slide. Yeah, this is the last slide. So in terms of boosting your chances in the labour market, this slide just summarises some ways in which you might wish to do that. So from work experience and placements to having a top-notch CV, learning from experiences and taking on responsibilities, undertaking interview practice, including virtual interviews, and most importantly, putting in some time and undertaking research and speaking to others. And that's it from me.
That's fantastic. That's brilliant. That's good for the students and for those looking to start their career to get a really good overview of what's available in the area where you live. And I can say that there's actually a lot. There's obviously a lot. There's a lot of good opportunities. Remember, we're going to hear from some of these companies in the next 45 minutes about what they do and how they operate in the area and the opportunities that they have. Somebody has asked a question. I'm not sure who's going to be able to answer this. Is it possible to do STEM after college? I would ask David, who's asked the question, do you want to clarify that? Does that mean a STEM job after college, or to get back into STEM to restudy after you've left college already? If you get a clarification on that, put it in the Q&A box for me and we will approach that afterwards. So thank you, Caroline, for that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to David. And David is from the Cloudy Group. Welcome, David. Let me get your slide up.
Thank you.
There we go.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. Thanks to the Skills Show for the invitation to come and speak today. And Caroline, thanks so much for that previous presentation. It was really interesting. So just so everyone knows, my name is David Hall. I'm the Managing Director of Cloudy Group Limited. We're based in the market town of Buckingham, the north of Buckinghamshire, but we have operations all over the country. So as a bit of background, I started the business 19 years ago. I left school after my GCSEs. So, you know, I'm an example of basically, you know, leaving school quite young, much to my parents' horror. and really achieving something. But it does take a lot of hard work, effort, and discipline. And I've got a little timeline here of some of the things we've done here at Cloudy Group, just to introduce some of the stuff that we've done over the years. So when I first started my business, it was an internet cafe. It wasn't what it is today. And I took out a small business loan. I bought 10 computers and put them into a basement of a pub. So there's a little picture there in the local advertiser of me starting up the internet cafe. And over the years, we modernised and transformed. And when I started the business back there in 2001, the cloud didn't exist. Obviously, we're called Cloudy Group now, so that's all we do is the cloud. So we radically changed over those years with a lot of help from some really helpful, wonderful people who supported me. And it was one of my life lessons, which is to really surround yourself with people who are positive, who can help you, and they probably want to help you. And, and it really does ensure that you get the best opportunities and the best way to grow and develop your company and your ambitions. So we rebranded as the PC people because the internet cafe model wasn't really working that well at the time, and we sort of changed over to PC and home repair. And then we changed to cloudy IT because the personal computer was a bit dead, to be honest, and it was all going into the cloud. And then we basically, took on more clients in different sectors. And there at the bottom is a picture of me, or say some of the students we've worked with at a secondary school who built an application for a mobile phone for a council, one of our customers, a council. And moving on, we rebranded again and we became Cloudy Group. And we were very fortunate to win a national award with the Careers and Enterprise Company in 2019, which was an absolute highlight of my business career. And today, Cloudy Group has a clear focus around working with young people and providing opportunities, similar to what myself really when I started out, and helping people on that career journey of theirs to find sectors that they can work in and in jobs that they can enjoy. We're really, really fortunate to have a very good team, and we've just recently got a silver accreditation for the work we do in the community. So next slide, please. So there we go. There's me making IT work. So I don't know how old I was at that age, maybe 17. I was sporting some dreadlocks at the time. I thought they were pretty cool, maybe. And interestingly, the guy there on the right is a chap called Chris Watts, who I'm still good friends with today, and who actually works at Cloudy Group and delivers our training for our customers. So, that photo was taken, I don't know, 23 years ago, something crazy like that. And we're still working together now, making IT work. But my point is this really, that throughout life, you'll meet people, you'll have new experiences. And my sort of advice to you is to put yourself in as many situations that would really just sort of maybe slightly feel uncomfortable or anything like that, because you never know when they're going to come in useful. I haven't always had an IT company. I used to be in events, I used to be in marketing, I used to be in the music industry. So I've had a lot of different businesses I've been involved with over the years, but they've all come together to ensure that my company, Cloudy Group, is a bit different from other companies. We're dynamic, we get involved, and that's unique to me. And I think everyone's got those opportunities they can create from the skills that they pick up over the years as they meet people and as they try new things. So a couple of different things there is, take responsibility for acquiring new skills and updating them. And I'll come on to in a minute about how you might go about doing that. And gain as much experience as possible, whether it's presenting, building your confidence, meeting people, it all will help later on in your business career as an adult. And, obviously it's an extremely challenging time for lots of people at the moment, but we have to look at the positives. And despite what's going on, there's been some really exciting developments. Like just today, this would not have been possible. But thankfully, through technology, we're all here talking, we're engaging, and opportunities are being created. And, I feel really blessed to be in the sector we're in, because, we've been hiring staff over this period. We've been running large events, working a lot with councils. Cloudy Group has a particular focus around the local parish town council sector, as well as legal sector. And thankfully, both sectors are growing really fast and consuming IT services. So obviously a bit of a grid there in terms of emerging roles, data analytics, machine learning, software development, digital transformation. 7 of those skills or job opportunities are technically based. So really, lots of opportunity. And here at Cloudy, we're really trying to help people get those opportunities. So next slide, please, Max. So the Cloudy Group operate our Enterprise Academy, which is basically we work with young people to give them opportunities, real world opportunities with councils and businesses. And we've been running for a number of years programs into schools, but we wanted to go bigger and wanted to go better. And post-COVID, that wasn't really possible. But we actually, over COVID, we met a young lad called Aaron, based in Preston, and he contacted me on LinkedIn and said, your company looks cool. Have you got any opportunities? And I said, well, actually, you know what, maybe we could do something. And to fast forward, basically, Aaron delivered a solution for a council. He put it together on the Power Platform. He presented it to the council. He made the changes. He did a fantastic job, and it was really good for his confidence. And the council got an application they could use. So we want to find more Aarons. We want to work with more councils, and we want to create more opportunities, just like I had when I was a 16-year-old boy leaving school, or when I started my business. So, it's a dynamic sector. Like I said, you need to get as many opportunities as you can. But, if anyone is interested in finding opportunities and working with some great people, please do find us on the Cloudy Group and the Enterprise Academy. Go look up Aaron. He's done a fantastic job. He's actually going back to the council next week to present to the council and for them to thank him for the great work he's done. I don't want to talk too much longer because I know some great conversations coming up very soon, but there's a very brief snapshot of what we do here at Cloudy Group and also a bit about the tech sector as well. So that's probably about it for now, really.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, David. That's really good to hear. And again, we're talking about the opportunities that are on your doorstep. And with companies like this, there are opportunities in the area. And remember what was talked about before, that with post-COVID, maybe there is a little bit of uncertainty as to what is happening in the future and how we're going. But look what Caroline showed us, that opportunities are opening up in other areas that didn't exist before. Maybe some of the old opportunities are closing, but there's new ones coming up. And you guys that are students, you're young, you're at the beginning of a career, and you have that ability and that possibility to change. Those of us later in our career as well. But you're really in a good position to be able to see with what you're studying, what you could go into. And so meeting people like David is fantastic, and you can see what he's done for himself over life. And so think about questions that you've got for him. He is going to be around until the end of the hour. So if we've got questions, put them in the Q&A box and we'll go through them. So thank you very much for that, David. So what else have we got? We're going to hear from Flannery Plant Hire, and that's Paul. Let's have a look. Welcome, Paul. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Max. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Yeah. So thanks, and thank you for inviting us to the Bucks Skill Show, online skill show. We've been supporting Bucks skill shows for a number of years now, and usually we would be people would be able to have a go on the simulator or an excavator, but this time we'll do it online. But hopefully you'll enjoy some of what we've got to say. So without further ado, my name's Paul Skitt. I'm the Skills Development Director at Flannery Plant Hire. And I just wanted to give a bit of an overview about the plant sector, but also careers in construction. So if you go to the next slide, please, Max. So where did it all start for Flannery? So 1972, Patrick Flannery Sr. Purchased his first JCB. You can now looking at that JCB, you can see how things have been modernised a bit over the years. But he bought his first JCB and hired it out to, I think it was then Wimpey Homes, which is now Taylor Wimpey, and that's how the business started. So it's now transformed into a nationwide, very large plant hire company. So if you go to the next slide, please, Max, I'll give a bit of a company overview. You can now see that we, Flannery, now have 3,500 machines nationwide. We take on 30 apprentices a year, predominantly in plant operations, but in plant mechanics as well, and I'll talk about that in a bit. I'll just point you to 1.8 years, the average age of our fleet. The national average is just under 4 years. So actually, the modernity behind the fleets now quite incredible. About 30% of our fleet is either low emission or hybrid. So we're starting to become a lot greener, the industry. So, and people don't always realise that. In fact, we just purchased 6 electric machines. So, you know, I think before the decade's up, it will be much beyond 30%. And you know, it's a really exciting time for the industry to have such innovation and a sort of green agenda to it. Just in terms of our coverage, our headquarters is in Wembley, not in Buckinghamshire, but we have been doing a lot of work in Buckinghamshire over the last few years, and increasingly so linked to HS2. We've been successful to get onto the middle section with EKFB, so that's the joint venture that's building the middle section. So there's going to be a significant amount of jobs that are going to be available in the Buckinghamshire area over the next 5 to 10 years. Next slide, please. So this is just, as I say, we take on 30 apprentices a year, so this is just a snapshot, but I'll just point you to the top 2 apprentices. That's Danielle Taylor and Avetta. They recently just won Apprentice of the Year in the plant industry. So Danielle Taylor has become the Apprentice Plant Operator of the Year. And before she became a plant operator, she was in finance industry for 10 years and in banking, but decided to leave that behind and get into the plant world. So, you know, she's a great role model of getting more women into construction. And Avetta, she started with the company about 18 months ago, and she did the higher desk apprentice. That's the sort of customer service and sales side. And she was the higher apprentice of the year. So we've been very successful in our awards this year. So that's our apprentices. So the next slide, please. Just give a general overview of some of the careers in construction. I think when people think about construction, they think about the trades, they think about carpentry and brickwork, or they think about building services, plumbing and electrical, but there's a whole range of different jobs within construction. So you've obviously got plant operator there in the middle, but you've got surveyors, you've got BIM managers, so building information modelling managers, which is the new technology in construction. You've got architects, you've got civil engineers, quantity surveyors. And I think the thing is with construction, particularly in this sort of COVID world, is construction still very much open for business and is growing. And actually, most of these jobs I've outlined here, there's significant shortages in these jobs. So there's really long-term sustainable opportunities over the next 5, 10, 15 years in a lot of these areas. And actually now there's apprenticeship programs in most of these areas as well. So, you know, do look out. There's some links later on in the slides just to sort of point you in the right direction. But I think there's now good coverage in most construction careers. So next slide, please. And well, just to talk about money for a bit, average salaries per sector. This was something I think the CITB commissioned at the back end of last year. But I just wanted to bring to your attention that construction is 7th in the rankings in terms of average salaries per sector. So it's 43,000, just under 44,000. So quite often people don't realise that the salaries that can be commanded within the construction industry. And actually, just on the plant side, you know, a plant operator that is, you know, skilled and experienced can be earning around £50,000 a year. So actually above the average. So some of the salaries that you'll find within the construction sector are moving in the right direction because there is a significant shortage. So I just thought people would be interested in that. Okay, next slide. So when you're thinking about approaching an employer for an apprenticeship, this is just sort of general advice and guidance around how we in the construction sector and how in the plant sector would expect potential applicants to what they would expect them to do. So, you know, to research the industry in general would be really good. To attend things like this, to attend webinars and careers events, albeit online, is a really helpful thing. And you can always reference the fact that you've been to these events. Pulling a good CV together, having a covering letter which really highlights that you've done some research and highlights your transferable skills and any voluntary work you've done, work experience. So really getting across that you've done lots of different things, you've got transferable skills that you can bring into an apprenticeship is really, really important. And we really look forward to hearing from people that have researched and seem really enthusiastic about entering the industry. At Flannery Plant Hire, we take on, as I said, 30 apprentices a year. But so in 2021, we'll do that at several intakes, probably March, June, and October. So we certainly look forward to hearing from you. Next slide, please. So this is just the final slide. This is a Go Construct website, which the CITB have, but you can click on those links and you can find out more about the construction industry and the opportunities that lay within the construction industry and the types of apprenticeships that are on offer. So that's it from me. Lovely to meet you all.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, Paul. And I think it's been really good to see that, because we've gone from one side to another. So we've gone from IT and technology to outdoors, and we're looking at plant hire and we're looking at construction. And there's some really useful points that were in that presentation that I want the young people to think about, the students to think about. Construction is way more than just bricklaying. There is a lot that goes behind it. There's a lot of technical stuff that will go behind it. And some of these technical skills that you're going to find in some of the other sectors that we're about to look at as well, and similar to David's sector too. But also the advice that was given about apprenticeships. This advice here that I've just gone back to the slide on, this can be used for any apprenticeship, not just within construction. And it's some really good advice there to research the industries that you're interested in. And especially if you're looking to stay in your area, which we're exploring here, we're exploring the Bucks area. All of this is about doing your research, making sure you find out what is available, and spend the time to do the research and the prep work, okay? And you will find better what is suited to you. There's advice there about getting your CV together, searching the web, newspapers. Again, it's all about research. So that this advice here is really useful. So Paul, thanks for bringing that in. And it's not just for construction, it's for any industry, especially those that we're talking about tonight. Thank you for that. And remember, if we've got questions, we can go through them. Bear with me a second. I think we may have a question. What is a good way to get work experience without having a job? And that's not just, I suppose, for Paul's industry, but Paul, in your industry, what is a good way of getting work experience without having a job?
Well, actually, quite often is engaging with, as a student, if you're engaging with your teacher or your lecturers at college or at school, employers are engaging increasingly with schools and colleges about work experience opportunities. So, for example, I spoke to one of the guys that is leading construction at the University Technical College in Aylesbury. We were talking about work experience opportunities for his students. And in fact, last year, one of the UTC students did come to Flannery Plant Hire for 6 weeks and did some work experience. Now, actually, he wanted to get into design, but he needed a bit of construction type experience to have on his CV to help him then get to a design company, which we then helped him with. So I think it's engaging with your teacher and saying, you know, what type of work experience you'd like would be my advice.
Perfect. That's good advice. And I think that advice is valuable for anything about work experience. It's about getting in touch with companies and looking at maybe industry standards and what's available and around. So let's move on. I'm going to introduce you to Emma, and Emma is from the NHS. Good evening, Emma. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. So thanks for having me. So my name is Emma, and I have been working at Bucks Healthcare NHS Trust since 2014. So I initially joined the recruitment team, so I may have met some of you at careers fairs and things over the years. And then at the beginning of this year, I've moved into the education team as an organisational development advisor. So I could probably spend my whole slot talking about what organisational development is, but I'll give you a quick overview. So in a nutshell, my job is to keep all of our staff happy at work and make the working environment the best place it can be. So I do a lot of sort of team building and team development and sort of interventions like that. So moving on to the bigger picture. So the sorry, can you go back to the other side? Thank you. The NHS is the 5th biggest employer in the world. And I believe in the county, we are the 2nd biggest employer. We did have the #1 spot until the council merged and knocked us off the top spot, but we are still 2nd. There are over 350 roles within the NHS. So there really is something for everyone. So this is clinical and non-clinical roles. And so a lot of people only ever think about those frontline staff. We all know about the doctors, the nurses, but actually there are thousands of other people that work sort of behind the scenes, and they keep the hospital operating and they keep our frontline staff supported so that they can provide the best care for our patients. So some departments that you may not have thought of are things like property services. So we have a team of craftsmen, gardeners, all different people that look after our hospital sites. We've got human resources, so I sit within the wider human resources team, and finance, biomedical scientists. You've probably heard a little bit more about people in the labs from they're doing the COVID testing at the moment, but they also will do, you know, sort of diagnosis of many other conditions. We've got mortuary technicians. The list goes on. There's hundreds of things you can do. And you can join the NHS at any level. So we have apprenticeships. So these would be, so in Bucks at the moment, we've got things like admin assistants. It could be, we've just taken one in our library and one in pathology, so in the labs. And we also have clinical apprenticeships. So we've got a healthcare assistant apprenticeship, and you can follow that right through to degree level if you'd like to go on to become a nurse in the future. And we've got other entry-level roles. These might be things like booking coordinators, receptionists, sterile services assistants. And then that goes right through a range of different level jobs through to consultants. That's the highest grade you could work as a doctor, or sort of our executive team. So that would be our chief exec, who oversees the whole of our trust. Things like directors of human resources, director of strategy, director of finance, things like that. So I always say to people that for every degree level role there is, that would be things like nurses, physiotherapists, pharmacists, occupational therapists. There's always an entry level role. So there'll always be a physio assistant role or a healthcare assistant. So something where you can just come in from sort of GCSE level and start your career in the NHS, and then you can obviously work through to degree level if that's what you'd like to do. And then there's also progression opportunities there. So you might look up to become a specialist nurse, or you might look to become a team leader, something like that. And so, as you've probably seen over the past few months, the NHS is full of amazing, passionate people who dedicate their lives to caring for others. So it's really important in the NHS that we have a lot of support for our staff. And that's where my team come in. So we have quite a big education team, and we offer support for everyone throughout their whole career. So that could be sort of in-house training. Like I say, I do a lot of team building and things like that. We also have links to all of our local universities. So some people go on to do degrees or masters with our local universities. And we also have apprenticeships. So apprenticeships aren't just for young people. We have a lot of staff of all different ages who are enrolled on different leveled apprenticeships if that's something that they're interested in doing or to enhance their career. And my final point here, so on a local level, Bucks Healthcare NHS Trust is an integrated trust. So we're really lucky. There aren't many integrated trusts in the UK, and we are one of them, which means that we offer acute care, which is sort of the care that we carry out in our hospitals, and we also carry out community care. So we have smaller community sites, and we also go into people's homes and deliver care in their homes. So we've got loads of opportunity, different ways to support our local community. And finally, I just want to mention here that we also have a massive and amazing research and innovation department in the trust, who are doing amazing things, sort of innovating, creating new things. They've also been instrumental in a lot of the COVID research that's gone on recently. So things like using dogs to detect COVID, and also a lot of the research that's happened into vaccines and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity, and there's also a lot of benefit to working in the NHS. The list is huge, but one of the things that always comes top of the list is 50% off at Domino's and 20% off at Nando's. That always goes down well with our staff. Okay, next slide, please. So here is just a basic patient journey I've mapped out. So it has 12 roles in the NHS that are highlighted, but there are loads more that could have been put in here. So as I talk through, just have a think about any roles that you think I may have missed. So it starts with Sam playing football with their friends when they hurt their leg. So a friend calls 999, an emergency medical dispatcher sends an ambulance, which will be manned by paramedics. They take Sam to A&E, and on arrival, at A&E, Sam is seen by a nurse and a doctor, and they think that Sam needs an X-ray. So a diagnostic radiographer will take Sam for an X-ray, and they see that Sam needs an operation. So a porter collects Sam and will take him down to theatres, whilst a medical record clerk will be in the background prepping the patient file. In theatre, an anaesthetist would put Sam to sleep, and they would work alongside the team in the surgery, which would include an ODP and obviously the surgeon. So an ODP is an operating department practitioner, for anyone that doesn't know. So again, that's one place within that team. There would be a number of other people within the theatre at that time. Once the operation is complete, Sam is looked after on a surgical ward, and there'll be a pharmacist on hand who would prescribe any medication that Sam needs. And then finally, Sam would be assessed by a physiotherapist to check that they can safely use their crutches before they're discharged home. So as I say, there would be lots of other people involved in that, and hopefully you could recognise a few other careers that may be in there. But I just wanted to give you an idea of how many people are involved in just one patient journey, and also all the different careers that you could do within that journey. Okay, next slide, please. So this is, my job's very easy today because there's tons of information out there on the NHS. But I don't know if you just want to take a picture of this, because it's some really good websites that you can go and look at to find some further information about. So the first one is just our trust recruitment page. So there's different staff stories on there. You can see our current vacancies. And as we heard from Caroline earlier, healthcare is a growing sector, and especially at the moment, we're very aware that a lot of people are losing their jobs, and obviously the NHS is probably busier than ever. So our chief executive has a real commitment to our local community, so he's trying to create as many jobs as possible to create as many opportunities as possible. So it's good to have a look on there, see what is on offer at the moment. And then there's the Health Careers website, which is a national website for the NHS, a really useful website. It's got a careers quiz on there that you can do, so it will sort of match up possible careers for you. Again, lots of information on different pathways and ways into different careers and sort of entry requirements. The third one is Step Into the NHS, which is an NHS website created for students. So it's quite similar to the Health Careers website. You can read a lot of sort of employee stories. You can also do a quiz on there, but there's a lot of resource and things on apprenticeships, work experience, all things like that. The final one is for health tech. So hopefully you'll know about health tech. You might have been lucky enough to go to their centre at Aylesbury College or have them come to your school. But we work very closely with health tech. They have loads of opportunity for young people to experience healthcare careers, and we're working really closely with them at the moment to develop a virtual work experience offer, because we've had to obviously stop having students into the hospital. So we are working on that, so keep your eyes peeled. That will be coming soon. And that is all from me. Thank you.
Fantastic, Emma. That's brilliant. Let me just, I'm not on mute. That's brilliant. That's a lot of information in there. Catherine has put into the chat box all of those links that are on this slide so that you can use them. Emma mentioned something about virtual work experience. Somebody asked earlier about how do you get work experience if you don't have a job, and at the moment, and we touched upon it, but lots of companies are doing virtual work experience because that's becoming really important. Companies like Pathway CTM, we're helping companies do virtual work experience as well. So those events are up on our website too. The NHS is in your area, and the NHS is the 5th largest employer in the world. That's huge. I think the Chinese army is bigger, but there's not many people that are bigger than the NHS in terms of employees, in numbers of employees. There is so much that you can do. Emma just showed you all of the different, not even all of them, but a massive amount of different opportunities. And this is in your area. This is where you live. So Emma, thank you so much for bringing all that information, and thank you for laying it out quite nicely on that journey. I hopefully Sam's leg is all right now. I'm hopefully still seeing his physio, but that's been brilliant. Thank you. Remember, if you've got questions, put them in the Q&A box. We will have a little bit of time at the end as well for questions too, so let us know if you've got any. That then brings me along to the next presenter, and that's going to be Rob, and Rob is from TotalSim. Let me change the screen. Oh, good evening, Rob.
Good evening. Thanks for inviting me to talk this evening. So my background, I went to university. I did a thing called mechanical engineering, and mechanical engineering, I think in today's world is nothing like it sounds. I went to university expecting to be a mechanic, but mechanical engineering is nothing to do with being a mechanic. It led me on to do a PhD in simulation, which is somewhere between computing, mathematics and engineering, and being able to work out the flow over objects. I started off with gas boilers, but I ended up doing 10 years in F1. I set up the computer aerodynamics modeling department that what's now Mercedes. I then set up a company called TotalSim, and we've modeled flows over race cars, road cars, motorbikes, bicycles, asthma inhalers, coffee machines. We've made a good living out of it. It's been very interesting, and we've diversified into other things. So as an engineer, I got involved in wind tunnel testing for bicycles. I worked for, I think, 10 years with the British Olympic team in cycling, and I helped win lots of medals for British cycling, Bob Skeleton. So engineering for me has been fantastic. I've got to see and do all sorts of things in motorsport, sport, and biomedical as well. And we've done quite a lot. It's led us to create a new company like Vortec, which makes bespoke cycling clothing. So we scan the athlete, we capture them in 3D like in a computer game, we put them in the computer and we work out the best fabric, the best fit, and then the machine cuts it out, we put them in the wind tunnel and we test it. And we charge them £3,000 for that perfect cycling suit. So that's a really exciting, interesting business. We also created another business around cycling and aerodynamics at Silverstone. And that's a wind tunnel where you can go and be tested. And we've got customers going there from Ineos, Team GB. We've actually had the British bobsleigh team in there and the British skeleton team in there this week. So again, engineering has taken us to an interesting place. So if you go on to the next slide. So this is the same thing. So this is flow over a racing car, and this took probably 200 cores of compute power, maybe a week to compute. This is a very intensive calculation, and it takes a lot of expense to run these computers for that long to calculate this. But this tells us what the race car's doing, and if you know what the aerodynamics is doing, then you know how to go faster. So the problem I'm going to try and illustrate in the next point I'm going to make is that this looks great, and everybody's sitting there going, "This is fabulous. I want to do this," but aerodynamics is hard. And if you go to the next slide, although the pictures look great, in order to get to those pictures, you've got to understand this. And really, aerodynamics is mathematics, computing, and solving things. Whether it's a coffee machine or a race car, the equations are the same and the challenge is the same. So what I'm trying to get across is if you see something shiny and awesome, like a Formula One car with streamlines over it, just hang on a minute, have a look at what that really means. And what that means in this case is complicated equations. Next slide. And really what we're trying to understand is some basic fluid flow. So for me, if I was sponsoring a final year student, I'd much rather he did flow over, or she did flow over a backward facing step like this and looked at the fundamentals of aerodynamics rather than did a race car. I think you would learn more. But next slide. The world of simulation and engineering, although it can look really quite great, there's a lot of staring at the screen, problem solving, figuring things out. And it takes a special sort of mindset to want to do that day in, day out. So that's my world of engineering simulation. But one of the things I wanted to kind of illustrate is the word engineering means different things to different people. And I think in engineering, we're slightly cursed, maybe it's too strong a word, with the name engineering. And what I'd encourage everybody to do is go and find out what engineering actually is and what it means. To give you an example, one of the projects we've kicked off is a project to make a test track. So we found a disused railway tunnel. We bought the tunnel, we raised the money, and we've spent £10 million creating a test track in an old railway tunnel. If you Google Catesby Tunnel, CATESBY tunnel on YouTube, there's a nice video that shows you what we're doing. And that's a really good example of engineering, innovation, civil engineering, and repurposing a tunnel. So engineering, it's huge, it's vast, and there are plenty of things in engineering that are just as cool as a racing car or a bicycle or making a suit for Chris Hoy. Things like chemical engineering. I always choose chemical engineering as a good example. The amount of interest in physics, challenges and problem solving in chemical engineering is vast. And I'd have been equally happy doing chemical engineering. And in fact, the richest person in the country is a chemical engineer. INEOS is a chemical engineering company, and they made a fortune. Other engineering disciplines like wind engineering, really interesting, helps reduce carbon. Fabric technology, we've spent a fortune researching fabrics and what's low drag. Things like, you've probably not heard of it, pattern making. To make a racing car, you make carbon fiber, but to get the carbon fiber shape right, you make a pattern. And that pattern is quite a manual, very skilled process. And the people that make those patterns are paid a lot of money. And it's not a very academic qualification, but they are just as skilled as the aerodynamicists driving shapes. Other ones in engineering, things like vehicle styling. Engineering kind of merges with art sometimes. So if somebody out there is really good at art and really likes engineering, cars and maths, then vehicle styling is something to look at. Something I can't do, I can't draw at all. We spend a lot of time in our business working on things like aspirin inhalers, coffee machines, and they might seem bizarre, but when you press the button and get that cappuccino, it's very difficult to get the bubble sizes right. It's very difficult to get an aspirin inhaler that makes the particles go all the way into the lung and deliver the drug in the right place. These are really quite interesting, challenging and rewarding parts of engineering, knowing that you helped design an aspirin inhaler that helped thousands of people all over the world. So again, the message is engineering is huge. It's really cool, it's really interesting, but you've probably only seen a little corner of it. The internet is great for exploring, and you can go and see what engineering is really about. So my overall message is keep looking, don't just see a Formula One car and say, I want to do Formula One aerodynamics. There are plenty of other things, and Formula One actually is really hard to get into, really competitive, and might be a complete flop for some people out there. So huge range of options. The other one I always bang on about is BTEC qualifications are great. Local colleges are great. There's nothing wrong with doing a BTEC. All three of my sons have done BTECs, and one's gone on to university, and one in fact did 2 BTECs. So BTECs let you try things and in fact have another go and not rack up a university debt and make a big commitment.
Rob, it's like you've got a direct line to one of the guys on the forum. He has actually got a question about mechanical engineering,
Yep.
and he's specifically asked. He's currently doing a BTEC construction level 3 course. However, he's got a very strong passion for mechanical and aeronautical engineering. Does he have to take a physics A level or a maths A level in order to go to university, or is there another way into engineering that doesn't have to involve university? Maybe. What are we looking at?
It depends what he wants to do. And again, engineering is vast. And one of the things we're missing in engineering is technicians, people who aren't necessarily university qualified, but can put together a circuit board, can run a series of experiments, can write them up, can put it in a spreadsheet. So if you've done a BTEC in civil engineering, as long as you're not 19, as I understand it, you can do another BTEC without any course fees. So you can switch. And some of the things you learned in the first one will transfer over. So BTEC can lead to university. Have a look at Coventry University. They do an automotive styling course. There's plenty of choices out there.
Perfect. And hopefully, David, that's answered your question that you asked. I know you asked it at the beginning, but I did know that we were going to be speaking to Rob, and I knew that he'd have the answer better about that kind of mechanical engineering. And hopefully that makes sense. Rob, thank you very much for that. That makes a lot of sense. That was good. Yes, I am passionate about Formula One and aerodynamics, but I haven't got the capability to do all of those equations. And it's yeah, I take your point completely about it. It looks great, but then you have to really think about how important it is and all of the different areas in there. Again, another great example of what is available in your area in Bucks. It's fantastic to see the diversity of the different sectors that we've got. Now, I am going to apologize because we are running slightly late, does not mean that we're finishing at 7 and not everybody gets to speak. You will hear from everybody. Remember also that this whole session is being recorded and the recording is available afterwards. So without further ado, we're going to move on to Pinewood Studios, and it's Catherine. Good evening, Catherine.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for having me. I'll try and keep it as brief as I can. Given an opportunity, I love to chat, but I'm realizing we're running over. My name is Catherine Maidment. I'm the Senior Community and Education Outreach Manager for Pinewood Studios, which, as you see on your screen now, has grown since its birth in 1936 from just 4 stages to the platform that we have here today. As was mentioned by Caroline earlier, we are hoping to expand on the green area just at the top of the picture there, hopefully with what we would call the Screen Hub UK, which would be a visitor attraction experience and an education stroke small business growth hub. That's in the pipeline, hopefully. Have no idea, we've just submitted planning for that. But it is an indication of how this sector is growing, how it's recovered from COVID over the last few months. Obviously, everything was in lockdown from March for 3 months, but production started to come back online in July and August and are in full swing, and that does include our productions on site at the moment. So we now have 27 stages from the 4, and I think if you ever keep up with the creative sector news, you'll know that there are stages and developments all over. So Dagenham has just announced a new 15-stage site. Elstree is planning to develop with Sky. We also have Shepton under our Pinewood Group umbrella, which is based in Staines, and you've got Longcross, Twickenham, Ealing, etc. So it is a big industry that is set to get bigger. The reason it is growing so rapidly is not only because of the tax breaks, which is great for the productions that come over, but it is the quality of the crews who work within the productions here in the UK. So looking at this slide here, just taking how vast that site is there. If we can move on to the next slide, Max, thank you. So for that vast site, though, we have a relatively small number of employees to look after that, which is around 200. That covers all of our departments within the studio. So basically, Pinewood Studios is a landlord to the productions that come on site and film for a period of time with us. Facility services and the operations department are our largest employers at Pinewood, mainly because of the upkeep, the level of upkeep that we need to maintain first class and world class standards for all of these productions that come. But we also have all of the other departments that many other companies have: HR, marketing, commercial, legal, health and safety, sustainability, accounts, IT and production. We have all roles available, from apprenticeships, from assistant roles up to director level and eventually onto board level. But we are passionate about getting apprentices into the company, and they would mainly be jobs within the facilities and operations departments, like plumbing, carpentry, decorating, painting, and electricians. And obviously being on site with those skills, once you've gone through your apprenticeship, we do actually plan out a job journey for you with your apprentice, but we do find that a lot of people actually make contacts with productions on site. So they take their skills that they've learned through their apprenticeships and they go on to the productions that are based there, which is great. It allows us to get more apprentices in. We are passionate about it, but we are such a small company in terms of our staff. We have about 2 or 3 a year, but hope to get, the aim is to have about 10 apprenticeships as a whole in the company at any one time. They are far and few because people tend to stay with us for a long time, but they are advertised locally within the local communities and through our careers website as well, which is on our pinewoodgroup.com website. If you go to the careers section there, any apprenticeships or jobs are advertised there. That leads us on to production. So Pinewood is basically as I said, a landlord for the productions that come on site, and those productions could be James Bond, Star Wars, Jurassic World has just finished filming. But all of those productions that come on site are separate entities. They are separate companies So they lease the space from us at Pinewood to film their films, to make their productions. The production's lifespan could last from 6 months to a year. It totally depends on how much preparation time you have, how much shoot time, and how much wrap time you have afterwards. But on set, in any given day on a big production, you would have perhaps 200 to 250 people on set. But a whole production can employ up to 1,500 people. And all of those people are what we term freelancers. So they are hired and fired on a production as it comes in. They're hired as it goes out, they're fired, and they go on to another production. And freelance can be quite scary for some people who are thinking of a career in the creative sector. But it is all about being as good as you can, being passionate, learning, and being as good. You're only as good as your last job, basically, if you're a freelancer. So you have to impress to move forward. It doesn't mean that every job is freelance within the creative sector. There are many production companies who hire on a full-time basis, which is actually how I got into the role 32 years ago. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I think probably like many of you listening to all these industry professionals here, I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I would have hoped that I could have had something like this when I was trying to choose my career. But at a loss for what I wanted to do, I learned a skill, and that skill was secretarial skills. And my first job just happened to be in a film distribution company. So with that skill, I got my foot in the door, and that's how I learned about publicity, and that's how I progressed my career up to a position where I was traveling around the world with A-list actors and implementing their publicity strategies for them. So a skill took me into a world that I had no idea existed. So I love doing these things. I'm absolutely passionate about telling people how to get into the industry. I haven't got enough time to give you all of those pointers at this point. But if anyone has a connection with Marina at Bucks Business Hub, then please get in touch with me via Marina. I'm happy to help anybody with a specific question. The first port of call I would go to for any freelancer or anyone interested in getting in the freelance side of the industry, which would include obviously the productions, would be screenskills.com. They are the only government funded body in the UK who support training within the creative sector, and they are the ones to go to get your first training position. Getting on a set or getting on a production, you would normally start at the bottom as a runner or a trainee, despite the fact that you may have gone to university and qualified in perhaps media studies. A qualification such as media studies gives you a broad information pot of what the sector is like, but not necessarily a skill in one particular area. So if you are going to go on to higher education to study something that could take you into the creative sector, I would suggest you actually focus on a skill and learn to be the best at that, rather than get an overall blanket introduction to the sector. Despite going to university, you would still have to start at the bottom when you come on set, and you might find that when you've been at university for 4 years in higher education, somebody has come on set as a runner, got their foot in the door and worked their way up within the departments there. So it's a total personal choice whether you earn as you learn, apprentices with Pinewood, assistant roles, whatever it is, to trainee positions or runner positions on a production. Once you've got your foot in the door, it's very easy to kind of navigate yourself to where you want to be. It's also really important to understand that once you've chosen a career, you can branch off into different directions. I think some of my colleagues here tonight have talked about transferable skills. All of the skills that I mean, certainly from Paul's area, construction, can transfer to the creative sector. I mean, who do you think builds all those amazing sets? Who do you think paints them, builds them, puts the scaffolding up, puts the plaster on, makes us believe we're actually in a far, far away world? It's not all about hods and bricks and mortar. I just wish more people would get into construction. Sorry, Paul, I know I'm taking over your sector there, but it's a massive skills gap, and it's a really good sector for people to get into. It can take you anywhere. It can take you anywhere. It's not all about building wimpy homes, or not that that's a bad thing, but there is so much opportunity with those skills to go on to exciting things like the creative sector as well as the construction sector. So all of your skills, all of your interests, they can transfer to this sector. Think of all the job roles. If you watch any high-end television program, any good film that you love, all of those credits that come up at the end, they're all films. They're all films. They're all roles that are filled with real people. Real people do those roles, and there are thousands of them. Don't think it's all about directing. Don't think it's all about producing, and because until you understand all those credits that come up at the end of any of those high-end productions, you won't understand how they all go together to be able to get that above the line job that most people would like. Sorry, I've gone on. Could you go to the next slide, please, Max? So Pinewood Set for More Futures is a sub-brand that we have literally just created because we take our commitment to getting people into the industry so seriously. That could be anything from careers talks, of which I'm finding myself doing lots of careers talks at the moment in terms of virtual panel sessions like this, and our Set for More Futures Festival, which sadly is virtual next year on the 13th of February, but that's the way it has to be at the moment. But it's just a way for people to come and visit us, to attend a day-long event and just explore with some of our exhibitors like BAFTA, British Film Industry, Screen Skills, etc., what kind of roles are available in more depth, spend a bit more time having a look around those roles and finding out how to move forward with that interest, should that be of interest to you. Sorry, I've gone on for a little bit, so I'm gonna stop there, but I'm always available via Marina if anyone's got any more specific questions about the creative sector.
Perfect.
And Pinewood.
Thank you very much for that, Catherine. And again, a good plug for the construction industry there. You have got a couple of questions, and somebody has asked, are Pinewood offering any work experience or summer placements in the coming months? I'm guessing obviously in the summer. And do you recommend anything for people looking to work in this industry to do during these lockdown months?
It depends what work you're looking for within the creative sector. Pinewood sadly aren't doing any work experience at the moment, understandably. It's also very hard to get people into work experience for short periods of time because of the facilities and operations jobs is heavy machinery, etc. So it's quite hard. They are reworking our work experience program though, so I will let everybody know when we can start taking applications for those. And during lockdown, totally depends what you're interested in, but build up your CV, start looking for, if you're interested in filmmaking, make your own little films. If you're interested in opportunities, look on Screen Skills website, look on Resource Productions website, which is based in Slough, and see what opportunities they've got virtual. There are so many opportunities for people to learn about the creative sectors online now, because everything is virtual. So I totally recommend looking at Screen Skills and Resource Productions. They will have loads of opportunities for you to get interested there.
Perfect. Okay, and that will answer the question as well about opportunities within acting. Are there any apprenticeships in that section? You can have a look at those websites that have been mentioned. I don't know if there are, but yeah. And also, Catherine, how competitive are the job roles at Pinewood?
Within our little 200 staff that we have, is very competitive currently, but that was explained before. It's obviously a ramification of COVID. For example, we had a senior comms roll up for grabs recently that 700 people applied for. It's obviously only one position. Previously, pre-COVID, that same position was advertised and 40 people applied. So it's incredibly difficult in every sector at this point to get jobs. I don't know how else to say it. I don't know how to say it nicely. I'm going to pull the plaster off. It's difficult.
So fair and honest answer. Thank you very much for that, and thank you for your presentation and for your time, Catherine. Right, let's move on. Last one. It's a big one. It's the UK space, and it's Mark. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. Hopefully we've still got everyone with us.
Certainly have.
Excellent. So good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to talk to you about careers in space and beyond. Hopefully tonight I'm going to give you a small insight into the UK space industry, and also about some of the activities and things that are going on right on your doorstep here in Buckinghamshire, which hopefully you'll find quite amazing. Next slide, please. So space is really a UK success story, going back to the 1950s when we launched some of our first satellites, to creation of the UK Space Agency back in 2010. You know, there's been a steady growth in the space industry, and really now it's at the heart of some of the most groundbreaking science, discovery and technical innovation. So today, the space industry employs just over 40,000 people. It's worth about 15 billion, which in the greater scheme of things is really only about 5% of the global economy, which is really quite small. But the great thing is the ambition. And the UK has a massive ambition that by 2030, we'll have something like about 100,000 employees in the UK and something around about 40 billion of income. So why is that relevant? Well, that then presents loads of opportunities for you guys out there to think about. So what could you be working on when I talk about space? So I work for a company called, if you can go back, please. If I work for a company called Reaction Engines, and we really believe that sky's not the limit. We're working on what we call a brand new propulsion system, basically an engine, which we think can unlock space and hypersonic flight. Now that sounds pretty amazing, with an engine that we call Sabre. For those of you interested, it stands for Synergenic Air-Breathing Rocket Engine. Bit of a mouthful. But what is so different about the engine that we're working on? Well, if you think about today, rockets, how do you get to space? Well, it's all done with what we call a vertical launch rocket. The rocket is on a pad, it has all its fuel on board, it takes off, it gets to space, maybe deploys a satellite, and then maybe is used again, or it comes back down to Earth, but generally it's just a one-time use device. Our vision with Sabre is that imagine you're looking out of your window at a runway and you see a space plane take off. It accelerates up from 0 up to about 5 times the speed of sound. That's nearly 3,500 miles an hour. Goes up into space, deploys a satellite, puts that satellite up there, then comes back into the Earth, into the atmosphere, lands back down, refuels, and then takes off again. Very different to the way conventional rockets are launched today. And whilst doing that, the fuel that it uses atmospheric air as well as onboard hydrogen. So it's quite green, it's quite good in the environment, and it's totally reusable. So that is actually work that's taking place here in Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire on that engine. Next slide. So what would it actually mean working in space? Well, if you think about the different things, it's about exploring, discovering, understanding new planets, maybe solar systems, our galaxy, our planet itself. It's about building and designing new systems, maybe propulsion, maybe satellite launchers. It's quite important. It's about improving and helping about everyday life. It's about how you can solve real life issues, create applications that maybe help people. And then it's also about communicating. I mean, as we've already mentioned tonight, this wouldn't be possible without the satellites that we have floating around up in space. Next slide, please. So what job could you do? Well, you can see on here there's a whole load of subjects that I'm sure you'll recognise from school. But if you just look around here, if you consider things like if you're interested in maybe physics and maths, we talked a lot about engineering earlier, whether it's mechanical, electrical design. If you're into biology, maybe biology maths, then maybe somewhere around product insurance, quality assurance of all the products. If you imagine when you send something into space, it's not coming back anytime soon. So it has to work right first time and be very reliable. If you're into biology and geography, where you could be looking at data scientists, Earth observation specialists. If you're really into your computer systems, you've got, communications engineers, software architects. We've talked about modeling and analysis previously, so a whole load of opportunities there. And then finally, if you're really into your physics and chemistry, well, things like propulsion specialist and radiation engineer, meteorologist, in our company, we really do have rocket engineers, rocket scientists. It sounds quite far-fetched, but we actually have them. But don't forget, we talked about there's lots of engineering type roles there. But behind all this is obviously the general day-to-day operations. So, you know, if you're good at managing day-to-day tasks, maybe project management is a good thing. You could be into financial, you know, like spreadsheets and things like that, maybe financial control or business development, maybe even marketing and communications. And then finally, something that underpins everything. If you've got a real aptitude for working with people and you can use those skills, then human resources are a really good place to think about. So next slide. So how do you achieve this dream job? It sounds quite hard to achieve it, but there really is a lot of opportunities in and around us today, from placements, apprenticeships, graduate schemes, and there's a couple of websites here that's definitely worth having a look at. If you go to www.spacecareers, there's a lot of information about there. And also you can have a look on our own website at Reaction Engines. We are only a small company of a couple hundred people, but you know, the value of having apprenticeships, those BTECs that Rob was talking about earlier, they're really important. For us, some of the key things is not just what you've got on your CV, but also how you come across, how you communicate with people, and how you interact with people. Teamwork is a big thing. So, you know, at school, when you're doing those team projects, they're the sort of things that we really look for, you know, that cooperation and working together. So hopefully you'll see from that short presentation, there are a lot of opportunities. Space is around Buckinghamshire. It's here and it's growing. And hopefully you'll be excited about some of those areas that you could go into. So thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Mark. And that was some really valid points in there as well about when you think about, the space industry. Mark mentioned those points about human resources, about project management, about all of those jobs that you think might be maybe slightly less exciting than being a rocket scientist, but they are still valid in all of these industries. In all of the industries that we've heard from tonight, they do all have probably legal departments, HR departments, and there are project managers. So these are really valid skills, and they're really valid points to make. There is a lot of different sectors that you can apply those skills into. And then there are the more specialist ones that we've spoken about as well. And actually, Mark, we've got a question here. And somebody has asked, what sort of work experience / summer placement can somebody do if they want to enter the space industry? And how can they enter that space industry in the future? You mentioned some of those points before, but is there anything else more specific?
Yeah, well, I mean, like a number of other panelists, you know, there are sort of industrial placements we do. We have been doing sort of work experience things in the past. Obviously, we've had to curtail that just at the moment. But I think a couple of people have mentioned this is you'll be surprised, but within our business, we have people from across a multitude of different industries. And for instance, we even have people from the gaming industry, from the medical industry. We do a lot of things about thermal management and, you know, computational things. So I think the message is really just try and get any of that experience that you can. Doesn't necessarily have to be in a space company is what we're looking for. And I think that's the same with many of the other companies. It is hard, but again, reaching out to people, you know, just getting spend a half-hour conversation if you can on the phone with someone and just get an insight into what they're doing, just gives you a little bit more insight of the working environment and how that might apply.
Fantastic. Yeah, really useful information as well. When you are thinking about things like work experience, and this isn't just the space industry, this is all industries, and for all of the young students out there, it is about making those connections and finding what you're going to enjoy, or think about what you're going to enjoy. And also, whilst doing work experience or applying for certain things, you might come across those things that you don't enjoy, and getting that experience is as important as finding what you do, because if you can eliminate and find out what you don't like, then you can focus on what you do like with more certainty. I've got a question here for Emma. Emma, are you still there? Emma was from the NHS, remember? Hopefully you are. I've got a question for you. What kinds of volunteering activities might be useful if young people are looking to get a job in healthcare?
That's a really good question. So we do offer volunteering opportunities within the hospital, and we are still taking volunteers on at the moment. Obviously, we have to be careful with sort of COVID restrictions, but we are still taking volunteers on, and we do have a student volunteer scheme as well. But if you didn't want to come straight into the hospital, local care homes are a really good place. They're always looking for volunteers. Local GPs and dental surgery is always good. Or to be honest, any volunteering is good, especially in a customer service role. Obviously, within the NHS, pretty much whatever role you're in, there is an element of customer service, and you will always encounter patients. And obviously, we want to make them feel as comfortable as possible and give them the best experience. So any customer service role would be great to have experience in. So
perfect. And that does help a lot, and also relates back to those things that Mark and I think David mentioned it as well, and so did Paul, about those skills, those transferable skills that you'll get from one area that you can transfer to others. It's the same with the NHS, it's the same with the space industry. You might not get the direct experience in that particular industry because it might be difficult, but what skills do they need, and where else can you get those skills from, and what can you do to get those skills in those other areas? So it's really important to think of how they all relate to each other. If you have got any other questions for any of the other speakers, please put it in the chat box. There's a lot of information there. Catherine has put in the chat box as well all of the links that have been handed out tonight, so for people, you have got access to them. I think we can sum up and say that actually in Bucks, what's on your doorstep? A hell of a lot. There's a lot of opportunities, and there's a lot of different industries, varied, for you to get stuck into. And remember, as young students, it's about you doing your research to now find out where you want to go, or maybe where you don't want to go. But you've got a lot of this information has been put in front of you tonight, which is really, really valuable. Make use of it. Have a look at those different industries and what you can do in your area and what your area is great for. It's really, really valuable, and this will help you with your future. Caroline spoke about it at the beginning, that you might have to change jobs, or we might have to start looking at different sectors because of the post-COVID economy, but those opportunities are still there, and you've heard from several people. If we haven't got any more questions, I would like to say thank you to everybody for coming this evening. And just like that, question comes in. So if for a CV in the creative industry you need professional headshots, how would you progress in your career when this is prohibited during lockdown? Well, I think you will find, and maybe a lot of these people will back me up, that if there is something that they require during lockdown that is not possible, then they will adapt to make sure that they're asking for what is possible during lockdown. If something like that is being asked for, but it's not possible to gain, then I don't think you're going to be held back for it. Would some of the other people on the panel agree with me on that one?
Oh, yeah, I'd agree. I think, everyone's being quite flexible at the moment, aren't they? And I think we're all trying to make sure opportunities are created. People can find jobs where they can, and I think everyone would sort of relax that a bit and just ensure people can still continue to apply, etc. Yeah.
And that's the point that you will find, that with COVID, with what has happened, the majority of companies will change. Companies still need people to apply, and they still need employees. Universities still need students. They are going to change to make sure that students can apply. Companies and colleges that run apprenticeships still need students and people to apply to their apprenticeships and be on them. So everybody will adapt necessarily and change. It may take a little bit of time for those changes to happen, but you've heard from all of these industries that are still going and still adapting and still changing and still making sure that everything can be done. And so, yes, thank you for everybody to everybody for coming tonight and for presenting. We appreciate it. And thank you for everybody for interacting and asking questions. And very nicely, David has said, great presentation. So thank you to all of you guys. And yes, this will be available for viewing later on YouTube. So thank you very much. And everybody have a good evening.